welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. So this is something new I wanted to start. It's sort of a little, I guess you can call it a podcast, although I don't know if I would call it a podcast myself. I just sort of want this to be a meditative experience that I do once a week for anyone who's listening. And the general idea is I want to talk about subjects of fiction and maybe science, history, meaning of life, sort of just delve into a philosophical view on certain things. And the reason I chose Thoughts and Coffee is I feel it's important to, at least once a week get in something important for your life, something that's meaningful, something that you can kind of take away head on into the future. And I think the best way to do that is by starting the morning off with something good. So this is sort of a quiet little time to just relax. If you have coffee, if you have tea, any sort of healthy beverage, just sit down, lay down, get comfortable, and we will talk about, on this very first episode, The Wizard of Oz. And I chose The Wizard of Oz because, what's funny is I've been thinking about it lately, and I don't know why. I grew up watching the movie way too many times. I've seen The Wizard of Oz, over 100 times for sure. I mean, there was a phase where my little brother, when he was a little kid, was really obsessed with it, so that's like all we would watch. And of course, from a cinematic standpoint, I think it's a great movie. It changed cinema. And I'm not really going to go talk about The Wizard of Oz and the history and the impact that film had on our culture and society, and that could be an episode, of course. But what I am going to talk about is something that I couldn't really find online. I sort of thought about that story a lot and started rewatching a lot of the movie when I had time earlier this week, and I can't find any sort of meaning on, what does the film mean? There was something, and I'm assuming that a lot of you have heard of this theory. There's this really weird essay, I believe it was written in the 90s, I didn't do too much research on it, but that The Wizard of Oz is like it has more of a political statement more than a philosophical view. That, I mean, I don't really know all the details. I read some of it. I had heard about this a while ago, and I looked over some of it again earlier this week. But basically, don't quote me on this specifically, because like I said, I don't remember all the details. This is not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm just going to bring this up real quick. That Dorothy's family kind of represents the hardworking family just trying to make ends meet, and there's something to do with the gold standard, and it's just very political talk, which is fine. There's an interesting case for that. To me, it seems a little really, really far-fetched into looking at The Wizard of Oz that deeply. I mean, I don't know. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I was trying to find out, hey, what do the ruby slippers mean? What does it mean to be the cowardly lion that finds courage? And, I can't find anything on that. And so I'm kind of here to put my own point of view on it, and I'm not claiming any of this is right, but I did think a lot about some of the scenes in this movie and some of the story elements and how they could kind of be applied to even today of how our own lives, and you can kind of take this story for granted, not really think about it. You just watch the movie. It's kind of a bizarre movie, whatever. So I guess I'm just going to talk about the film specifically and not the book. I've not read the book. By the way, I'm drinking green tea right now. It's delicious, but it is going cold, unfortunately, and now I'm sad. But, the biggest feature of this film, as far as the cinematic and historical point of view that really made it a big thing, was that it's the first film in color. With maybe a few arguments and exceptions, which I won't get into. But but they colorized the film. And the big point of the story is when she leaves Kansas and she gets sucked into the tornado and she ends up in the land of Oz, that the second she opens the door is when the film becomes color all of a sudden. And that's a very obvious statement, but I kind of looked at it into a deeper way of, what does that mean? Why does the film go to color when she opens the door into the land of Oz? Is the land of Oz opportunity? Is the land of Oz freedom? Because we certainly know that she was having a lot of problems in her life at home. Not with her family, per se, but with the neighbor, or because Toto who ends up being the Wicked Witch, Toto got into her garden and she said she was going to kill the dog. And to me, it's an interesting point of view, because it's it kind of has this semblance that even at home, all of our problems are there. And even if we think we're safe at home, we're not. That those monsters and stuff that we're scared of, and monsters meaning, it could be anything, agoraphobia, or agoraphobia, disaster, the pandemic that we're going through right now, whatever you're afraid of, you might be stuck at home all the time. But if you do that, someone like the Wicked Witch will come to you. You're not always safe when you're at home. And it's sort of like a deep message about life in general, why you shouldn't take it, And it'll make more sense as I go on, because I'm going to bring up an interesting point about why the film goes to color in black and white in a second. But the film does go to color. And she meets all the munchkins, and there's a good witch, and then her house crushes the Wicked Witch's sister. The Wicked Witch of the East is the one that is killed, and then Dorothy gets her slippers, and there's a lot of meaning behind this. It's a complex story. It's got a lot of very strange elements to it, but it is complex. And I thought, what do the ruby slippers mean? That was the one that puzzled me the most. Because they're silver in the book, I know that much, and they changed it to ruby. Most people, from what I can tell, it was a film choice because, they wanted the colors to really stand out because it was going to be one of the first films in color. But I was trying to find a philosophical meaning behind the ruby slippers. And I had to think, okay, well, she has these ruby slippers. They're put on her. She doesn't put them on. They kind of just appear on her, and that says something. And as you could tell, I'm working a lot of this out in my head still. I did write some stuff down that I feel like I figured out. This was the hardest thing for me, was the ruby slippers. And again, if you're confused right now, I'm going to go back to why the film goes from black and white to color, but there's a reason I'm waiting. It's because the end of the film, when she gets home, it goes back to black and white, and I kind of want to touch on that when I get to there. But for the life of me, I could not figure out the ruby slippers. I mean, the concept itself is fairly easy. There's the whole element of tap your slippers 3 times and say and repeat, there's no place like home, there's no place like home, there's no place like home. But that's not what I'm talking about. She gets these slippers and then she ventures down the yellow brick road. As if she can't do that without the ruby slippers. And that was just puzzling me. I couldn't figure out what that means, from a symbolic standpoint. The only thing I can really tell, if I have to sum up the entire movie in kind of my own interpretation, is that your home is the most important place in the world. There will be no place like home ever. Homes are where you grow up. It's where you raise children. It's where you spend time with loved ones. But you have to leave eventually. You don't have to be gone forever, but you have to leave. And if you want to do something great, if you want an adventure, if you want a challenge, you have to sort of exit the black and white world of home, where there are problems, and enter the colorful world of opportunity. But what's really interesting is most of the problems in the film happen in the colored world. That's something that's interesting. You could make an argument that it would make more sense if she left a colored home. Color, meaning film, of course, but she left the colored lens of home and entered a black and white world. Because even though there's opportunity in a black and white world, there's certainly more danger out there. Way more danger, and that's present in the film, of course. She's got the Wicked Witch and flying monkeys and trees that throw apples at her. I mean, it's nothing but challenges throughout the way. And there's a poppy field. And even though it's visually stunning, there's way more drama and danger that happens along the journey of Dorothy and, her 3 friends that she'll meet along the way. And those have deep meanings in themselves. But we should also just go back that a storm hits her house. Now that's saying something too. It could be a message of when a storm hits, maybe it's time to dream of an exit solution. Maybe it's time to actually leave and push through those fears you have about leaving. But at the same time, it could be that no matter what storm or disaster hits you and your family, you have to stick together. Because of course, by the end of the film, she wakes up and I had a crazy dream, and you guys were all in it. But her family's together, and everyone's together. And so even through storms, you should stick with family. But that's again for a later point. But she goes down this yellow brick road, and I felt like the yellow brick road. Yellow's an interesting color to choose because, it's not green. Green would be, obviously like go, venture out. And if it was red, it would be a danger sign. There is a red brick road, actually, if you're interested. If you go on some YouTube videos and look at when she first enters the Land of Oz, you'll see a red brick road that goes into another direction. That's really interesting of itself, if anyone's curious. And a lot of people were talking about that in the comments and saying that there should be an alternate film on that, and I would totally be for that idea. But it's yellow. It's not green. It's not red. It's not an obvious color. It's yellow. I mean, if you think of a stop sign or a stoplight, you think, wait. But that's not what the yellow brick road means necessarily. I think it just means a neutral color of anything can happen while you're on this road. Meaning this journey. Good things are going to happen, but certainly bad things will. That's why it's yellow. Green kind of implies good, or even blue would imply good, but red would imply dangerous. Yellow's like in between. I think that's why it's yellow. And why is it brick? Well, no matter how many bad things happen on this road, because certainly good things will happen, it's brick because brick is stable. It's hard to break. It's hard to destroy. And that in of itself is interesting that the material is brick, because they specifically say it's not the yellow road, it's the yellow brick road. This is a strong road you're on. But it has problems, but it won't break. The only way that this road will collapse is if you jump off of it. Other than that, no matter what you face, it's a solid brick road. It might deteriorate, it might start looking ugly, but it's there for the long run. And that to me is interesting. And who do we eventually come across? We come across the Scarecrow. What is he looking for? The Scarecrow doesn't have a brain, and he's looking for a brain. And why does he want a brain? Well, because he wants to be able to think. And that's interesting. Because you don't want to take it too literally, being that it is a children's novel overall. But there's something interesting about this, because when watching the movie, I noticed Dorothy helps the Scarecrow down from the stake that he's on. He can't do it himself. And then he explains, I need a brain, and she's going to the Land of Oz to get back home to Kansas. And he ventures with her. Maybe the wizard will give me a brain. I'll come back to what that means too, because then we venture into the Tin Man. Tin Man's frozen in time. He's stuck there. He needs oil. He needs help to be free. And then he explains he needs a heart. He doesn't have a heart. And the same sort of thing happens. He ventures with them looking for a heart. Fast forward, we then go to the cowardly lion. The cowardly lion lacks courage. And he wants to be courageous. He's a lion. He should be king of the forest. Yet he's afraid, stuck in the same place all the time. Now let's go back. Anyone notice a pattern there? If you did, think about it for a moment. What three things, or what scenario were all three of these characters, aside from Dorothy? Well, actually, even Dorothy, if you think about it. What were they all in? What kind of scenario were they stuck in? They needed someone's help to move to the next place. The Scarecrow was stuck on a stake. It's a minor detail. It's not the focus. It's not his goal. He's looking for a brain. But he's stuck there, and Dorothy has to help him down. The Tin Man is literally frozen in time. He's frozen, and he needs oil to move. And then finally, the Cowardly Lion is just too afraid to venture out on his own. Dorothy acts as a motivator in the sense of getting people to kind of leave and take the next step outside of their comfort zone. And it's to the point where if you're so scared, if you're stuck on a stake, if you feel like you need oil, it could be that traumatizing to take that next step. And having someone to help you do that is important. And in Dorothy's scenario, it's somewhat similar because she didn't go to Oz intentionally. A storm took her there, right? She wakes up in Oz. So I find that very interesting. No one necessarily helped her to Oz. So maybe the storm could also represent, because she did it alone, that's what she had to face to get to Oz. And that was just the beginning. But these three characters are all in the same boat to a degree. They're kind of trapped there until someone pushes them along. And something I find interesting about the Tin Man specifically, I noticed this. You notice that the Tin Man is the only one carrying a weapon? He's carrying an axe. Why is that interesting? Well, he doesn't have a heart. I found that very interesting. I kept thinking about that. He doesn't use the axe. The Tin Man certainly seems like he has a heart. He seems like a very nice character in the bunch. He's not very aggressive. But he has a weapon. He's the only one that carries an axe. It's very subtle, but that's what I've noticed. The one without a heart has the weapon. There could be there's something interesting there. What I find interesting is what they were desperately searching for, they had the whole time. And it takes people for them to realize that. And it really takes Dorothy to push them to take that extra step. Dorothy wakes up and understands that it was a dream. And we're back at black and white. We're not even in color anymore. We're just at black and white again. Everything seems to be fine. She's okay. Everyone's okay. The end. But what does this mean? What does this film mean overall? Well, I have a few thoughts. Let's take this pandemic, for example. Many people are at home so that we can't get sick, we can't get others sick. We're kind of just at home. Even though lots of places are open in certain states, some states stuff is closed. There's a lot of drama in the world. We're all at home. This pandemic, one really negative side effect is it's made people very afraid to go outside. And I won't lie, I'm in that category. I'm still working it out. I've gotten very anxious. I've been working on it for a while. But this is why this film was so interesting to me, especially watching it recently. This film strikes that we should all be Dorothy Gale in this story. And what does that mean? Well, you're at home. There's no place like home. It's comfortable, but it's black and white. Black and white's boring. It's the same old thing. It's nothing new. And even when you're at home, disaster hits. Maybe a neighbor is mean to you. Maybe you have a bad stepfather. And maybe you think staying at home, doing the same old thing every day, or just keeping yourself distracted in video games or TV or whatever, maybe that's just the safest route for you. Why go outside? There's a disease right now. I have the best excuse to stay inside. However, what you will find is that hopefully it doesn't take a tornado or a storm or a horrible disaster to make you be motivated enough to go outside. You know, sometimes disaster throws you into a loop and you have no choice but to go outside, like Dorothy. She opens the door and there's color. It's a land of opportunity. But there's also munchkins and strange looking houses and bright colors and weird objects and strange people. Because leaving the same old thing behind and exiting, let's say your house, can feel like a foreign world. You don't understand everything. But it is color. It's opportunity. But it's scary. The Wicked Witch shows up and stands in your way and says, I'm going to follow you and try to stop you. And that could be many amount of problems. But whatever. You push through anyway, even when you're alone. You step through and walk on that yellow brick road. That sturdy road that's not red or green, but it's yellow and it's sturdy. And the only way I can get off this road is if I turn around or if I jump off. But you're on it. And you meet good people along the way. And you know what's really amazing? Is the message of the movie is not necessarily friendship. The message of the movie is that you need courage, a brain, and a heart to walk on that yellow brick road. Because if you're courageous, well, good. That's the first step. Interestingly enough, it's the last person they meet in the movie of the bunch. But courage is the first thing you need to leave and walk that road. You're going to need a brain too. You don't want to just be courageous. You want to be able to think about the situations you'll be in. You want to be smart. You want to calculate if anything bad comes up, how you'll handle the situation. And you'll want a heart. A heart, because lots of people need your help. Like the way Dorothy has all three things. She has courage, a heart, and a brain, and she's able to show the other three that they did have those the whole time. Maybe not embodiment. Maybe they really didn't have them, because, you know, one's a scarecrow, one's a tin man. But that's what they learned, is that it just took someone to show them. But you don't want to just want a heart. You want an axe, like the Tin Man. You want to be ready for any potential disasters. Anyone that stands in your way. Interestingly enough, I think that's what this movie means, at least to some of its core. It's the perfect journey, and it stands up in time, and I think it's more relevant now than ever, which is very interesting. There is no final destination. Oz isn't the final destination, because we go back home at the end. Why is it black and white? Well, because it's familiar. Black and white isn't bad. It's just familiar. And that certainly at the time it was familiar. Color was the foreign thing. That's what made the movie so famous. You don't want to just be around, as Jordan Peterson would say, unfamiliarity and chaos the whole time. You want to go back to the familiarity. And I think that that is necessary. Because you want to go on this journey. It's for your good, your own success to earn those ruby slippers. It's to help others along the way achieve their own dreams and get their success and to push them through life. But you do it as a team. And you remember that once you reach Oz, whatever your Oz is, that it's not over. And that's not the final destination. But as long as you walk on that yellow brick road, and you know there's no place like home, you'll be okay. So push through your anxiety, especially during a pandemic. Stay safe. Even if you just take a walk 15 minutes outside, do it. Push through. And don't be afraid. And try those things you've been wanting to try. Help those along the way. Think strategically about the plans and things you want to do with your life while you're on this road. Have a heart for others who are lost, others who are angry, others who aren't utilizing themselves, others who are scared, others who don't think, and be courageous. Because the only thing that could stop you is you. The Wicked Witch can't stop you, but you can. And that is it for my first episode of Thoughts and Coffee. Thank you.